What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's video. This is just going to be an overview, basically progress of what's going on with the WRX and where we're at currently. So we just wrapped up e-tuning a couple days ago. Everything went pretty smooth. As you guys know, street tuning, the only nervous part about it is when you're doing wide open throttle pulls, making sure that you don't get pulled over. So just make sure you're finding a safe location, or as safe as you can. Don't put anyone else in danger. But yeah, everything went pretty smooth. Let's go over the modifications real quick. So for anyone that's perhaps thinking about installing a part that I might go over or is doing a build very similar, these are just a few things that I noticed along the way, and hopefully they help you out. But let's go ahead and begin. So right up in the front, we have the ETS front mount intercooler kit. Fitment was pretty good, not bad at all. You can fit the stock bumper without any modification to it. It's just really tight. I want to say like maybe 8 out of 10 as far as fitment goes. It will get on there and hold. I did notice though that the fog light covers will protrude out a little bit and start popping out of place, primarily at this corner, and the same thing with the opposing corner. And that's just because of the way that the piping is. And again, everyone's experience as far as how bad it is will be different. Just depends how well you can get the piping lined up. So I thought I did a pretty good job. It was able to fit. I kept it completely stock looking when I mounted it back up, just to get an idea if I really wanted to do this center cutout. But I'm glad that I did that, because it ended up marking behind the fog light covers where I needed to trim to get a good fitment. On the passenger side, I was able to actually just shave away a little bit on the inside, and that allowed that side to fit no problem. On the driver's side, I actually had to cut out probably around this area here, right behind this, 2x2 area, 2-inch by 2-inch area of material. So that wasn't bad either. And then it was able to perfectly fit, and now the fog light covers don't protrude out due to that extra pressure. And then since I had the bumper off while I was doing that, I figured why not? Let's go ahead and trim the front lower grill out just to get a little bit more airflow. I was going to originally follow the body lines here, but then I decided against it because the bottom would still have that black plastic coloring, and I felt it would look a little weird if you just took it over the sides and eliminated it. Who knows, maybe I'll do that in the future, or just get a different bumper to experiment on. But I'm pretty happy with this result. It leaves a little bit of trim there. You just got to be careful. Use some painter's tape or something and a Dremel cutting tool. That's what I did. I tried to get this line as straight as possible. Once you cut out the little fins here, or the guards, you will have leftover noticeable areas. I tried to square them off as best as I could, so that way it didn't look too bad. And in my opinion, you know, unless you really focus on it, like you're the person that did it and you know those areas that you're not happy with, it's not very noticeable. So that was pretty cool. So charge temps are a lot better with that out. Obviously with the ETS kit, the intercooler itself sits just a little bit above the bottom of this Subaru badge here in the front. So I'm not going to cut this away just because that would look really goofy, but allows for a lot better efficiency. So I'm happy with that. Overall, I think it came out looking pretty good. What do you guys think? Could be better, I'm sure, but it works for me. I'm happy with it. We'll address that later on down the road. But okay, so in regards to the intercooler, here's the piping. Goes right up. Now obviously it's shorter underneath where you can't see, but this went really well. Fits pretty good. The only thing I didn't like was the flex fuel kit. Since I added the Cobb flex, no, not the flex fuel kit, the Cobb fuel pressure sensor, which is right here, it extends it out due to this billet adapter to where I have to loop this fuel line over the piping. It's got a lot of shielding on the actual fuel line itself. As you can see, it makes contact and just pretty much rests on it. We got it secured down here at the coupler, another coupler over there, and then the intake right here. So I feel pretty comfortable with it. I'm not happy with it, but you know, with leak testing and everything, it's had no issues holding on. It's fine. So I like the fact that I can monitor it up here. I know some people will put it onto their flex fuel sensor, which if you have the Cobb flex fuel kit, the sensor mounts between the fuse box and the battery tucked in there. I'm not a huge fan of that, so maybe one day I'll just make some custom lines and relocate it so that way the fitment is a little bit more towards my liking. Again, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just I visually like to be able to see it. So, but other than that, it's pretty good. Flex fuel kit was super easy to install. The only trouble that I ran into along the way was when you're bolting up the fuse box, getting that lower bolt to line up with the flex fuel sensor was a little bit tough for me. It took me a while. What I ended up doing was just, originally I took these 2 bolts off and the third to allow it to shift around, but then once I got that bottom bolt all buttoned up, it made it very difficult for the top right here to line up. So I undid that, redid these, but just loosened them, and then I was able to get that in after quite a long time, and then everything came together. So I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I wanted to be extra careful not to strip that out, and mission accomplished. It just was a pain for sure. The couplers here, I have the hardware pushing out that way, just so that way you have room to get to your oil cap, so that way you can fill oil when needed and do your oil changes without having to disassemble anything. I do have to be a little bit careful. The spacing is really close, so you don't want to cut yourself. This is kind of a little jagged here, so you just got to be careful. Windshield washer, that was relocated with the ETS kit. What I ended up doing is with the spacers, it pushed it out, and I just mounted it to the battery tie down, so that way it doesn't go anywhere. And the fitment is really good, holds in place, so I'm pretty happy with that. That actually ended up working out really good. So no complaints there. What you can't see is I do have the NVIDIA catted J-pipe, downpipe. That's a 2-piece. Quality is pretty good. I was pretty happy with that. The J-pipe installation itself, I thought it was going to be really bad. In fact, that was like the one installation I was a little worried about. But it ended up being the easiest for me. Again, a lot of it has to play with like condition of car, environmentals. Like this car is pretty much new. I have a little under 3,000 miles on it. Started the tuning process around 2,000 miles. And you know, it's at my daily, so during the tuning process I also just had to drive it around town and take care of everything that I need to, so that's why the mileage went up pretty significantly in my opinion. It was just because of that, but no issues there. The stock cat location is pretty cool. I was going to go with the Grimspeed downpipe, and the cat location there is at the tail end of it. The only reason why I didn't was because Grimspeed is just selling out like crazy. A lot of people are buying their parts, so they just don't really have a lot in stock at the moment, or at the time that I was buying all my parts and doing my installations. So I ended up going with that just because of availability. Wish I could have picked up a Grimspeed piece. Same thing with this cold air intake. I went with a Cobb cold air intake. Originally I planned to get a Grimspeed one. Same story there. I just couldn't get it in time. It kept pushing out and pushing out. It went from I was going to get it in 1 week to then 2 weeks to then a month and then 2 months. So we ended up going with the Cobb one. I'm a little disappointed with this Cobb product. I don't know if I maybe just got a lemon, but my piping for the kit was completely bent where it mounts to the filter. Luckily enough, it's a very, very thin aluminum, so I was able to just bend it back by hand, and looks good to me. No issues with fitment, no paint flaking off. But my biggest issue with the quality of that piece was the fact that the MAF sensor location where it mounts, there was on the inside and kind of sticking out was just a bunch of aluminum shavings that weren't taken off or cleaned off, or I don't know. It must have slipped QC or something. I'm not going to shame them too hard because I was able to work around it. I took a brush and push some air through it to loosen them all up and get it all out of the piping before installation, because I mean that's going from filter sucking in the air going right into your system. You don't want aluminum shavings passing through. That'll be bad news bears for sure. So a little bummed at that, especially it costs more than the Grimspeed, and I hear that the Grimspeed one is really, really good. So I was just bummed I wasn't able to get the original piece, but that's okay. overall, it ends up working. Again, it's probably just a one-off, but just strange. Have any of you guys had that problem with a Cobb product? My experience with Cobb has been really, really good, so that was kind of just a disappointment because of how good they've been to me. So moving on, the IAG AOS, that's the street version that I originally installed it right when I got the car. Same thing with a axle back. I went with a blocks axle back at the same time. Knowing that I was going to change the axle back in the future, I just needed something to give me some volume in the cabin because I like to hear that feedback while shifting. I like car noises, so that worked out great. And now I got it switched out to the complete system that I was looking for, so I couldn't be happier. Axle back system's only a few $100 depending on which one you get, but very inexpensive in comparison to the full system. So back to the IAG AOS. So far, this is the street version. I had no issues. The reason why I went with it because of the power rating that I was shooting for, or staying in the realm of realistically, along with you know, a couple of little information bits that they give you. They give you the power level. They say that if you're running ethanol as well, this is good for it compared to the competition one. How true that is, I don't know. I really believe that the competition one would have been fine as long as, you know, regulations in your area allow it, because the competition does blow to atmosphere, does require a tune. The IAG one does not, just recirculates through the system. So who knows? The cool thing about it is if you get a street version, they do sell an adapter for the top. I think it's a little under $100, and you can convert it over to a competition if you're not happy with the performance of the street. If something's wrong, you know, you just switch it over. So that's really cool. I really like that flexibility. And since we got the front mount, since there's no more top mount, this is all empty vacant space. So what I did was I installed the Veris hood scoop block off plate, which I'll show you in a second. I mainly did that because I just didn't want rainwater. I live in Michigan, so we get all types of weather. We get, you know, rain and snow and all that stuff, so I just don't want it pushing in there to an empty space. So that's why I installed that. Now some people will say that it does help with the efficiencies of if you're front mounted, just due to positive negative airflow and, well, just filling up the engine space and causing that difference in pressure zones. I'm not 100% sure on the truth of that. I've done some research and yet to see any graphing or anything like that. But I did notice that running it completely stock and then putting that block off plate after I did my front mount and after doing a couple runs, I noticed like maybe 3 or 4 degree difference in favor of the block off plate working. So it's kind of situational, I think. Really, you know, in a good aspect, it would be better if I had the venting for heat. I do not have that at the moment. Haven't had any issues with my temps, especially at idle, sitting at stoplight or something like that, stop and go traffic. I've had no issues where it's even getting close to being to the limits. So I'm fine. Maybe if you live in a hotter state, it'll be more of an issue. A lot of people, if you install that, you definitely want some heat ducting so that way it can escape somehow, because that's usually how it escapes when you're sitting at a red light with a top mount, or at least, you know, that's what I've learned from it, what people have told me. So, and that makes sense to me. So it needs some way to escape, and without that top mount there, allowing some of it to come up, you know, you're just virtually closing it off, except for obviously the bottom. But if you're not moving, you're not getting any airflow, so that heat soak will happen. So yeah, discretion is up to you. Some people do it just for the look. Again, I just did it to keep crap out of the engine bay until I figure out what I want to do. Like, if there was a heat issue, I would immediately remove it. But so far, so good. I do plan on getting some venting in here in the meantime, just because I don't want to spend $1,500 to close to $2,000 on a new hood. It would be a good investment, but this is just my daily, like straight up everything that I've built up for these bolt-ons is pretty much the stereotypical grocery getter. I like modifying cars, so that's why I did it. I'm not doing it for numbers or anything. So your results and goals may vary, but that's what I'm doing with mine. So, but anyways, I keep getting sidetracked. Sorry about that. IAG system runs good. I haven't had any issues yet. Again, I'm pretty low on miles, still under 3,000 by like a 50, 60 miles. So we'll see as they climb up, but so far so good. Another piece that you can't see, and same thing in the back end, is I did my fueling. So I went with a Nostrum for the high pressure fuel pump, and then for the low pressure side in the basket that sits in the rear seats underneath, I went with an AEM 340, and good. No problems. You can actually install that before you do anything else in a tune if you wanted to, because it can retain stock values, no problem. So that worked really well. And then I do have an HKS blow-off valve sitting in there as well. You can't see it. I did it just because I wanted that classic JDM sound. There's literally no performance gain to it unless you're pushing more boost, which I am not. I'm still on stock turbo. But, you know, I just wanted the sound, and the tune compensated for it to where the car runs really well. I've had no issues, knock on wood. But yeah, couldn't be happier with the setup so far. I'm still on, everything else is pretty much bone stock. I have the short throw in there that came from the factory, the STI one. Happy with it. No reason to change it. Feels fine. Tomei shift knob. Basically non-essential things. And then here's the ETS catback that I have installed. It's the Extreme. So it's no resonators, no mufflers. With the NVIDIA catted J-pipe, along with this exhaust system, I didn't do headers, so it actually maintains a really good volume. I'll do a sound clip for you near the end of this video, so you can check that out, and then I'll also post it as a separate video if you just don't want to hear me talking the way that I am now. But the volume is actually very moderate. It's been pretty warm days here in Michigan, like 90s, for the whole time I've been tuning the car and working on it. So a true cold start when it's actually a really cold temperature, no idea. For the most part, it hasn't been that loud to me. Personal preference on loudness though. I know a lot of people are different, but to me this is a great setup. I wanted something where I have a son, he's 5, he sits in the back. I didn't want to blow his ears out, but I also wanted something to where when you step on the gas, you know, drive a little bit more spirited, then it really opens up, and this setup accomplishes that for me. Again, if I throw in headers on there, I'm sure I'll get even louder volume. I came from a catless car to this one, so it's definitely a dramatic difference on how loud it is. So that's probably why this one sounds a lot quieter to me. You know, it's not like, you know that it's modified, it's just not obnoxiously loud, and it has a really good throaty tone to it, very deep, probably due to the 3-inch piping. But in my opinion, it sounds really good. Here's the block off plate. So it adds a nice two-tone to it too, breaks up the all white. But yeah, let me fire it up real quick, so that way you can hear it. And in my opinion, it's really great if you don't want to piss off your neighbors, but you still want it to get loud when you open it up. Yeah, it's showing 89 outside. I feel like just stagnant heat though, it's hotter. Sitting in the sun. But really cool. It really opens up the turbo spooling noises and the exhaust. Same thing with that cold air intake, interior wise. Once you start getting on the accelerator, it just gives it a more, you can hear all that induction and everything, so it gives you more car noises. Sounds really good. But in my opinion, this is not loud. And note that the motor is cold, so it's warming up. It's not a vicious cold cycle though, so I'm interested to hear how that sounds when it's actually way cooler in temperature, because Michigan, we're gonna have the winters, so I'm curious on that. But otherwise, it's been great. It's not enough, I don't think, to really wake anyone up or make anybody mad at like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. So, but yeah, when you give it some acceleration around 3,000, 3,500 RPMs, it really opens up, and then it really fills the sound. As far as drone, you can hear it, but in my opinion, it's not bad. It's just the tone. It's mainly hearing the sound from the outside coming in versus really just filling the interior. You can have a conversation over it without any issues, so I really enjoy that. Let's step in. There's a little wasp or something trying to bug me. I do not want to get stung. But yeah, it sounds really good to me. Like, you turn off the air. Like, you can hear it, but it's not bad. And while cruising, it's not terrible either. Let's actually go out for a little drive real quick. Let's get a little bit out of the driveway. I'll roll down the window a little bit. FedEx guy down the street. I can see him. Let's get out of the driveway. So I got the window cracked a little bit because I turned the AC off. With the AC on, obviously, when the fans kick on and off, you're going to get a little bit of RPM hunting, but very minor, but it's there. It's just a part of the platform. Yeah, but I couldn't be happier with the tune. So far, everything's really good. The only thing I'm waiting on now is I'm waiting for my tuner to send me a virtual dynograph, since it's an E-tune. And that'll give me a very rough base of where I'm at. Obviously, it won't be 100% accurate. I'm just trying the close we can with the logs to try to get a general idea of what power we're making, but in the end, I'm not expecting anything high because that's just wasn't what I was aiming for. I'm not really a numbers guy for this car. This is a daily. I just told them, hey, tune it very conservative. You know, I mainly did all these modifications for, you know, the exhaust stuff as well as the cold air intake. Those are just noisemakers that also, you know, the exhaust frees up for a little bit more performance. And then E85 and the front mount intercooler for knock resistance and better charge temps. So really just all making it a little bit more efficient, a little bit more what I would call safe, to each their own. But I wasn't really hungry for power at all. He offered to do like a kill map if I wanted. I opted against it because it's just not driven hard. The only time this car has seen wide open throttle and will ever see wide open throttle is when I was tuning. So if I ever retune, that's what it sounds like. Pretty good. And the cabin noise is pretty minimal in my opinion. Sounds really good. I like hearing that blow off valve. To me, it's not obnoxious. It's a HKS Super Sequential 4. When I was reading up on forums, you know, the J-pipe installation was supposed to be really difficult. I think since I had low miles and I PB blasted them and let them soak overnight, I had absolutely zero issues with the studs and nuts. So no issues there. I was actually really super quick. I surprised myself. Probably just overthought the job. And then same thing with the HKS. A lot of people are saying that's a very leaky, terrible valve. I don't know if maybe they got a rep or not, or just unlucky. I mean, lemons happen, but that started getting me a little bit nervous. Like maybe I should have went with a tile. Like I heard that they are very, very good. But I already had the piping with the flange for the HKS. So I said, well, I already have all the setup, so just go for it. So I just stuck with the setup and it hasn't disappointed. It actually working really, really good. So I guess you never really know until you just try it out. And it's not for everyone for sure, but I enjoy it. So that's what it's all about. Wife loves it too. Son absolutely loves it. But it's fun. As far as the E85, that's the reason why I did the Nostrum. You don't have to, but I just didn't want to blend. Here that you can get like ranges of E30 to E60 without any issues with just replacing the basket, the in-tank pump, but I wanted to not have to blend at the station. So I opted to get the Nostrum so that way I can just pump the 85 in, not pay attention to how many gallons I'm putting in, just fill it up. And it's been great. With the tune on pump gas, power band's a lot smoother, feels quicker. And then with E85, don't get me wrong guys, it's not like insanely fast. It's faster than it is stock, but it feels a lot more peppy, a lot quicker and to the point, you know, pretty much aim and shoot. And it just overall feels really good. Doesn't feel difficult at all to shift through. Again, I'm low miles, but I'm on stock clutch, stock transmission. Everything feels normal, nothing different. So some of those stories that you read online, who knows, maybe I'll be one of those guys too. I'm saying on this video that everything's good, and then maybe I'll show signs of issues later on. But for now, I'm happy. I'll update the channel as more mileage grows, so that way people can kind of stay informed. I don't really plan on changing this setup anytime soon, so hopefully that'll just be a good resource of, you know, longevity. I'll try to log that as best as I can. But yeah, overall, runs really good. It just feels like a way better version of stock. Gives you really good passing power, sounds really nice, just runs the way that I would, you know, hope that a car would run right out the gate. I didn't have a problem with the stock tune. For me, it's just a matter of adjusting to the platform or adjusting to the car that you get. I know that it can feel a little bit different shifting compared to coming from a different manual car. So you just, a lot of compensation, a lot of things have to do on the driver's end. But yeah, like, everything's great, so no complaints, really happy about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will try to post up sound clips in a separate video as well, because I doubt anyone wants to watch this now, peaking into about like 27, 28 minutes. But this is mainly for me, and hopefully if you want something to watch and enjoy the platform or curious on some things, that you can get something out of it too. But I really want to just document my progress with this car, just so that way I kind of know what's going on, and something to show the kids and look back on myself. So, but all right guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya.